Hello, my Buzzy AP Bio students. Today we will be covering the topic of interactions between organisms and communities for Unit 8, Ecology. First of all, we must ask, what exactly is an ecological community? It is the particular area where all of the populations of a different species live together. So, just a reference. Picture an area where a handful of different species coexist with one another. Maybe in an African setting, there could be lions, zebras, elephants, hyenas, gazelles, all the other plant life, and the abiotic factors too. This is an example of a community.
Wow.
Within these communities, the different species are bound to interact with one another. These interactions are called interspecific interactions, where inter means between. There are different interspecific interactions that consist of different effects between the two organisms involved in said interaction. These effects may be positive, represented by a plus, negative, represented by a minus, or neutral, represented by a zero. Plus-plus interactions, portrayed like this, demonstrate an interaction that benefits both parties. Plus-minus interactions, portrayed like this, demonstrate an interaction that benefits one organism and harms the other. Minus-minus interactions, portrayed like this, demonstrates an interaction that harms both parties. There is also a plus-zero relationship, where one species benefits from another but doesn't have any effect on the other. There are 5 main types of interactions. There's competition, which would obviously be a minus-minus interaction because both members of the species are at a disadvantage due to the fact that there is a species trying to obtain the same resources as the other. So none of them benefit from the other being there. If we were to look at an example of this interaction, one could be a species of sharks who go for the same food and other resources. These sharks would have to constantly fight for their necessities. Next is predation, a plus-minus relationship, because one party benefits from preying on the other organism, which clearly doesn't benefit the other at all. This interaction could apply to, say, a lion and a zebra. The lion preys on the zebra, obtaining food, and the zebra, loses its life. Competition and predation are of a broader relationship category. However, the other 3 are in a separate one called symbiosis, which just means that the species involved in these interactions have a closer relationship with each other. There is mutualism, a plus-plus relationship, where both organisms' existence benefits each other. For example, bees and flowers. When bees pollinate from the flowers and get their source of food, they spread the flower's pollen to other flowers of the same species, which act as their flower sperm cells. Next, there's commensalism, a plus-zero relationship. This is when one species benefits from another, but doesn't have any effect on the other. An example of this are whales and whale barnacles. The whale barnacles get a place to stay rent-free with plenty of food provided to them, while the whale just coasts along without any care for the barnacles. And then there is parasitism, a plus-minus relationship, where one species benefits from the other species, but the other species is harmed. An example of this is fleas and dogs. The flea uses the dog as a host to live in the warm place, while it bites the dog and sucks its blood. In turn, this causes the dog a lot of itching. They can lose hair, get scabs, and get infected in the vulnerable spots of itch. Well, hopefully those interactions make more sense to you. Now, in the last segment of this video, let's backtrack and talk more about interspecies competition. First, we will define a species niche. A niche is basically the species' ecological role in the community. This role is determined by the different conditions, resources, and interactions it needs to survive. There is something called the competitive exclusion principle. This principle tells us that two species cannot properly coexist if they have the exact same niche as each other. This is because, due to their identical niches, they will require the same exact resources, causing them to compete. In the case that two species niches continue to overlap and become greater, their competition will also follow suit. Considering this, there is a way that competition exclusion can be avoided. This can be done if one or both of the competing species evolves and begins to use a different resource, move to a different area of the habitat, or change their feeding times to a different time of day. As a result of this evolution, the two similar species ultimately become part of different niches. This is called resource partitioning, helping the species coexist so they don't directly compete anymore. In the end all of these relationships and interactions matter because they are important to their ecosystem. Without them, the community would not be able to function properly. Every single interaction begins a chain of events that keeps the cycle of life flowing. Organisms can help each other and harm each other, but all of it is part of the system. It is very important to acknowledge how vital each species is to an ecosystem, because if one were to be threatened, it would disrupt the cycle. That is why it is so dangerous if, for example, a species is threatened by human activity. It could start a chain reaction amongst other species by removing their sources of resources, which can continue in a harmful way across the ecosystem. Well, what do we learn from this? Protect the environment around you. You never know if you could be harming an ecosystem by even the smallest actions. Oh, and hopefully this video also helped you with your studies as well. Keep on buzzing and learning AP Bio students.